and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we're going to talk about gratitude and teaching gratitude to our children. My guest is our Healthy Families Consultant, Alvean Lyons. Welcome, Alvean.
Thanks, Robin.
Good to have you.
I love this.
Gratitude is a great topic. I mean, as Thanksgiving rolls around, sometimes we start to think about it. It's what we should be thinking about. Sometimes we're just thinking about all the work, all the fun things we're going to do, and all the cooking. But the heart of it is about being grateful.
Absolutely. It's that, because the whole idea of Thanksgiving is giving thanks, which fundamentally is gratitude.
Right.
But a lot of times, because of the way that we do things, our culture is, we move in a way where it becomes about things and cooking and planning and all of that, and we kind of walk away from the real values that are supposed to be taught in some of our traditions, particularly our holiday traditions.
Right.
So we think that this is a great time in November to really be talking about gratitude as a family value. And how can we build that in our family? How can we make that very real for the entire family, no matter what age we're talking about, what stage of development, that everybody really sees themselves as responsible for being able to give back in various ways.
That is so good. And I think, you know, a lot of kids are used to having things and they forget to be grateful. And other kids don't have things. And all they can see is what other kids have. And it's, you know, it's hard for everybody in a lot of ways to step back and feel and express.
It's true, it's true. And in our current culture, especially, and you know, we have conversations about these things all the time as parents, that I mean, between the technology and the new games and the latest clothing and the brand names, that it really becomes about this acquisition of stuff. How much more stuff can I get? And that last set of stuff that you spent a ton of money on doesn't seem to be good enough now because all of my peers have the newer stuff.
Right.
And I mean, you're paying $200 to $600 for new phones, and something new seems to come out every week, and it begins to develop this whole culture of things as a means of determining value, and that is so far from what most of us parents would want to see for our kids. So we really want to reclaim that. And like I said, November is a great time with Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Let's get back to those kinds of things. So the first thing we want to talk about is laying a foundation of gratitude. Even when your kids are young, because many moms, we've got, you know, arrays in ages, so you may have some very little ones at home and some middle schoolers simultaneously, but it doesn't really make a difference how old they are in terms of starting this as part of the family value.
Right.
Because there's something different you can do at every stage. So in the laying the foundation stage, it's simple, very, very simple things, like making sure that your kids are hearing you say thank you. Somebody hands something to you, you say thank you. When you walk into a door and somebody holds the door for you, acknowledging that person. So often we just walk through and don't even think anything of it. But what we forget sometimes as parents, our kids are watching us do that.
Right.
So we are modeling for them what appropriate behavior is. And when we start talking about gratitude in terms of behavior, what does gratitude look like? That is deeply modeled in very simple ways all the time. So we have to make sure that our conversation and our conduct says that we recognize that it's important to be grateful in small ways, so that our kids themselves are even seeing that.
Gotcha. I spend a lot of time teaching kids please and thank you. And sometimes that feels automatic rather than gratitude. And it's still a good thing.
Right.
But going a little bit beyond the thank you.
Absolutely. And even recognizing when a thank you is appropriate. You know, a lot of times we don't even know that we're not acknowledging something that someone else is doing for us. So we begin to create a culture of taking without being a culture of giving. And that really changes your entire community. I mean, think about it. If everybody just takes and nobody gives, what kind of community would we live in? And then think of the converse. If everybody was committed to giving and not being quite as interested in what they got out of it, what a totally different world we would live in. So those all begin with what we're doing in our own households. We have to remember that we are just a collective of individual families. That's all a community is. So anytime we do something as parents to be able to encourage our kids to be even better people in terms of character development, then we're raising different kinds of citizens, and those citizens make up our community, which make us a different kind of local experience, which ultimately becomes a different global experience. And so it really, what we do with our kids matters. It really does make a difference, even if it only seems like 1 in a million. Those one add up. And that addition even there changes the way that everyone experiences life.
So how do you start? I mean, suppose you have little kids.
Okay, so first, like I said, modeling is going to be very important when you're laying that gratitude foundation. So we have to be a little bit more cognizant of the things that we're doing, because you teach more to your children by what you do than just what you say.
Right.
But most effectively is both doing and saying, to make sure that our kids see what the action is modeled, but they also understand why you're doing it. So you're even talking to your kids at that age. So when they're in that kind of preschool and toddler age, you're saying, okay, Jimmy, when we walk through the door, you hold the door for the next person coming in. And he may be 3 years old, but you're standing there helping him hold the door as another young woman comes in or an elderly person walks in. And that kind of simple behavior begins to instill certain values. Then making sure that when the cashier hands you your change, you say thank you for it. And you hand them their money in their hand. There's simple little things that acknowledge each other as full human beings and deserving of being present and known. So we want to make sure that it's in small ways that we are modeling gratitude, thankfulness, and good character with our kids. Then as they start to get a little bit older, that's when you developmentally can move up another level. So now let's even think about with our teachers, because that's what they're going to spend a lot of their days doing.
Right.
And you've got fabulous educators that, they don't just teach our kids, they practically fall in love with our kids. Our kids feel like their kids. A lot of times if you talk to an educator and you ask them, how many kids do you have? You're expecting them to answer how many they
28.
actually gave birth to.
Right.
And their response is how many kids they have in their classroom. Because that's what it is for an educator. I am a parent most of my day. And then if you're a parent on top of that, you come home and you're a parent again. It's 24-hour parenting going on. So understanding that there's a lot that is being given every single day, that our educators are pouring themselves out into as many of their students whose lives they touch on a regular basis. So even showing gratitude in simple things like, if you know what your teacher's birthday is, teaching your kids to design a card. Write in the card the kinds of things that your teacher loves or cares about. When you have your gym teachers or your coaches or, your local youth leaders at church, are doing things in the community, those people that you're with on a regular basis, that you're not just receiving all the things that they're giving to you, but you in turn are looking for ways to give back to them and just acknowledging the appreciation for what it is that they're doing. So we know you're not old enough to get in the car and go pick up a Hallmark card, but we all can pull out some crayons. We can all write a note. We can all, bake some cookies if you know what your teacher likes, or, create a little thoughtful basket of little things that, some Kleenex, because every teacher could use Kleenex in the classroom. Some extra markers and pens, just a little thoughtful care gifts that your kids are young enough to be able to understand, but old enough to also be part of the process in making them.
Okay.
So in that school age level, we want to use creative ways of doing it that are not expensive and don't have limitations based on what you have and don't have, but really are about saying that I see what you're doing for me and I'm acknowledging that, and I want you to know that I appreciate it. And for many of our educators, for instance, because I so love them, many of our educators, that's all they want. It's just to know that somebody gets
They're making a difference.
Right.
And then people see that.
Absolutely. So then as you move from that point to your kids at older ages, so when you start moving into middle school and high school, now it's about actions that show gratitude and appreciation. And what I mean by that is perspective. You can get some wonderful perspective by actually giving back in the community. When we look at the food bank, for instance, you don't even realize how many people don't even have what you have, to be able to sit down and eat a warm meal each day. And we're thinking about new PlayStations, and other people are trying to figure out where their next meal is coming from.
Right.
And it's easy to think that what your life is completely normal and everybody has what you have. But that is not reality.
Or actually, you almost always see the worst. You see what you don't have. And there's
that's
people
so
who,
true.
you know, are
That is
way,
so
way
true.
below.
That is absolutely true. That you're looking at the friend who has more than you or the neighbor who has more than you, and you're not even realizing how much you actually have.
Right.
And the perspective I'm talking about is when you're out there actually serving other people, actually giving back to the community, seeing how much other people don't have. And what's interesting, are still happy. That there's so many people who have so much less, and they're so grateful for the small things. But a lot of times if our kids are sort of incubated away from that reality, then they tend to only measure themselves by other people who have more or the same as they do. But when you take them out of those experiences and you allow them to see the world through from different vantage points, it changes who they are as people. So we want to move to that level where they're really thinking about what other people's lives are like. And in so doing, not only do you get to serve someone else and experience their gratitude, but then you get to step back into your own world and look at what you have and really begin to be thankful for even that. That sometimes when you get the no's and parents are, I'm not going to buy that. That you're just even grateful that you even have what you already have, as opposed to focusing on what you didn't get.
Well, what are some community give back opportunities that you can do as a family or that teens can do? Because I know sometimes organizations, you know, it's a little hard to handle if you get middle schoolers and high schoolers volunteering.
Absolutely. And there are so many. So I won't say any singular ones, but just in terms of ideas, because, you know, in Hampton Roads, we have so many different things. And, you know, going to hampton.gov, you can find out what's going on in the community all the time. But in addition to those things, there are so many organizations in terms of faith-based organizations in our areas that are always doing things in the community, that they're always looking for more hands to be part of it, because the need is always greater than who we have to be able to service those. So you can certainly reach out to any of your local faith-based organizations to ask them what kind of outreaches they have available. We have several nonprofits that do things, everything from the women's shelters to the food bank, that are all interested in ways in which they can empower some of the more vulnerable in our communities.
And you can look under the United Way
of
the Peninsula for that and get an idea of who's out there and how to contact them.
Absolutely. Then there are also school opportunities, because as your children get older, being able to go back to the schools, the schools love that kind of stuff.
Because it wasn't me trying to teach my kids gratitude, it was like a peer group.
It's true.
And the Honor Society, the, you know, all the Kiets, all those organizations have service hour requirements.
Absolutely. And you don't have to be a part of a particular club in order to be able to participate and volunteer in some of the activities that they're doing.
Right. Scouting is a great place where they do a lot of the giving back too.
It's very true. So there are a ton of options that exist out there, but it does require that we're proactive, because they're not going to come knock on your door and say, hey, will you help us out?
Right.
We have to make that part of our value system that says that, okay, even if you say every year around Thanksgiving, we are going to make a conscious decision as a family to pick an organization and to go donate our time. Even when it comes to feeding the homeless, for instance, too. I mean, like, there are so many things that you could be doing. The Salvation Army has things that there's just a series of them, quite honestly. So there's really no excuse for why we can't find something that we can do. And if nothing else, your kids can do even some small things, like the leaves are falling. You can just go rake your neighbor's leaves. Not for money, because most of our kids want to get paid for everything they do, but not for money, just as a way to say, I want to say thank you for the fact that you guys have been great neighbors. Or even if they haven't been fabulous neighbors, sometimes it's an incredible olive branch for your teenagers to get out there and to do something positive, because too often people don't realize how good teenagers can be. So to get out there and say, you know what, we're gonna rake the yards of some of the neighbors today, just as a gift, and we'll just write them a little note to say Happy Thanksgiving or Happy Holidays, or just wanted to make life easier for you. That is such a wonderful gift to be able to experience. So it doesn't even have to be something super organized, but sometimes it's just simple little things that you're looking at ways that you can make somebody else's life just a little bit easier. And you'd be amazed how good that makes you feel.
That is wonderful. And I will say too, Healthy Families does a lot of outreach for people. They've got an angel
Absolutely.
tree, they've got a foundation that helps collect things, they're a place too, and they do classes.
And that's exactly right. And a lot of times, and I love that you said that because then I don't even have to do my personal bridge. A lot of times, parents, we're not 100% sure how to go about doing some things. And sometimes we feel bad about the fact that we don't know exactly how to go about doing it, but that's totally appropriate. Not all of us, got the manual when our children were born, okay? Like we all are still figuring this thing out. So you've got Healthy Families here to support you. We have nurturing programs that run from age 5 to age 12. We have strengthening families from 13 to 17, all of which are designed to help strengthen the foundation that you're building in your household. We're not trying to change your house. We're trying to help you get more of what it is that you want to see happen for your families and to give you effective strategies to be able to do that. So just know that we're grateful for all of our families, and our only desire is to be able to support them so that we can build even healthier communities.
That sounds wonderful. And again, if kids want to give back, there's also, you can let them pick out a toy for Toys for Tots.
true.
Or, there's a lot
It's
of
true.
collection places that help. And it could be
And warm coats.
one of the toys warm coats, hats, gloves, mittens. There's so many important things. And if the child helps pick it out, maybe you still pay for it initially, but maybe sometimes they get one less gift, but they get the gift of
Giving
it
to
to
someone
someone
else.
else.
That's exactly
And
right.
I think that's huge.
It's the small things that we do with our kids that leave really big impressions. But it's our responsibility as parents to open the door for them to have those experiences. And we have to make a conscious decision, and ideally this Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday, to do it just a little differently. Because the foundation that we build here is what's going to determine who they're going to be as adults later. So we want to build a great and strong foundation.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. That was
Absolutely.
wonderful. And thank you for watching. It is a busy, crazy holiday season, and we're all trying to do a million things. But if you can take the time to stop and feel the gratitude yourself, model it for your children, and help them demonstrate it in their lives as well. Happy holidays.